Okay, the recording has started. All right. All right, guys. So let's return one sec. Let's return to the discussion that we had. We need to finish this quickly and get on to the next topic. Okay, so we have covered already. We have covered the all of these. We just wanted to look at 4, right? We were looking at number 4. The rest we have covered. So let's go back to the spreadsheet. Anybody has any confusions about number 5? What was number 5 actually? Number 5 is standardized contract terms. We had already started on number 4. So far what we had discussed from right. So this is what we had discussed in the last class. Everybody's clear about the scheme now? That in ETM, every transaction has to go through the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse is the counterparty for every transaction. Okay? Every transaction, clearinghouse is the counterparty, and the clearinghouse is only going to deal with clearing members. They will not deal with anybody from the retail market or institutional market. So therefore, the clearing member has to basically we will always look at every transaction as by including all the elements. Okay, even though the introducing broker may actually be part of a firm which is also a clearing member, but we will always conceive of the transaction as being done first through the clearing member part of the firm, and then through the introducing broker part, and then you have the client at the end. Client could be institutional or retail. All right, everybody's clear about this? Okay. So now what happens is we have to come to point number 4. Right. So this is the point that you have to understand. Okay, let's first look at OTC markets first. Okay. So you guys in front are you comfortable? I'm just going to stand at the back a little bit. Is this okay for you guys? Okay. Just try to get used to it so that I don't have to keep going up and down. Okay. So in OTC markets, okay, what you're looking at is, let's understand OTC first. So remember, OTC markets, the transactions are all with each other. Okay. Transactions are all on an individual basis. Like I said, let's say Bank of New Zealand in Wellington is calling Citibank in New York for a price, the night desk of Citibank New York, and Bank of New Zealand Wellington is calling Citi New York for a price, and they do a transaction in $yen. Okay, so let's say they do a 6-month forward transaction. Okay, now these transactions. So here there is no middleman involved. Okay, there's no middleman involved. Both of them are dealing with each other as principal. You understand the difference between agent and principal? Okay, so these are both dealing as principals with each other. Okay, direct transaction. So here, therefore, what happens is, just like think of a simple example where you're in most cases, in many situations where you're the local neighborhood grocer who gives credit to each family. Like when you're buying regular supplies from the grocer might set up an account for you and say that, okay, you don't have to pay me every time you buy something. Okay, you pay me at the end of the month. You've seen the situation. That is also similar qualitatively. That is also like an OTC market transaction. Okay, so suppose you buy a lot of supplies from your grocer for the month. Let's say your bill is 6,000 rupees. Okay, and then at the end of the month, the grocer says pay up, and you don't pay up. Then that fellow is gone. He's lost that money, right? So this is an example of credit risk. Okay, it's a new term that we're introducing because it's already written here. Counterparty credit risk. So in this case, either the first example where I gave you, Bank of New Zealand Wellington is dealing with Citibank in New York. Here, these are the two counterparties to the transaction. Okay. In the example I gave you, the grocer example, your local grocer is dealing with you. Okay. And then at the end of the month, you don't pay up the 6,000 rupees you owe him. You don't pay him. These are the two counterparties, the grocer on one side and you are on the other side. Okay. So the concept that we are introducing, the concept of counterparty credit risk. Okay, it's a new concept which we are introducing, a new term. Okay, what this means is nothing but this. For the broker, the counterparty credit risk is the amount of goods that he lets you buy without any payment. Okay, so did I say broker? The grocer. Okay, so every grocer will have this kind of limit. So he might actually have a limit saying that you can buy up once the bill goes up to 5,000, please settle the bill. Okay, or once it goes up to 10,000, please settle the bill. Okay. Sorry. So which means that's basically the limit of his counterparty credit risk. Because if he lets you buy till 5,000 and then you don't pay up, okay, then he's going to lose that 5,000, right? So that is an example of counterparty credit risk where somebody who owes you money does not pay you back. Okay, owes you money on account of a transaction, okay, and does not pay you back. Okay, you can also have, you can see all these examples in India. You can see the big crisis in the banking system. All these NPLs that are there. These are all examples of credit risk. Okay, this is all credit risk because the banks have lent the money. So Kingfisher and all these clients, they owe the banks money, right? So these guys, and even your Nirav Modi scam, he owes the bank money now. He doesn't have money to pay back, or he doesn't want to pay back, right? So these are all examples of what we call credit risk. Okay, wherever somebody owes you money, okay, and doesn't pay you back, that's an example of credit risk, counterparty credit risk on account of some transaction. The transaction in the case of the banks is they made a loan. There was a loan agreement. Okay, under the agreement, the banks, like recently, you know that ILNFS has defaulted on 3 payments. Okay, so that's again an example. So that's what all that loan was given as part of a loan agreement. They didn't just give out the money. Okay, there was a loan agreement that on this day the repayments will start, and you're supposed to start paying back the money. Okay, in these installments. And so they have violated the terms of the agreement and they have defaulted. Okay, that's again an example of. Here we say that the credit risk has materialized. Okay, the expression we use is credit risk has materialized. Okay, obviously the moment the bank lends the money, the bank has credit risk. The moment your grocer allows you to buy some amount of goods without any payment, he just maintains a book for you, and that's it. He's already running up credit risk exposure. Okay, and then if it comes to 5,000 and you don't pay up, then we say the moment you decide not to pay up, at that point we say that his credit risk has materialized. Okay, you understand the use of the word? Okay, so credit risk exists from the time you do the transaction. Okay, but it need not materialize. Of course, I could pay up as well. Okay, right. So this we say, is this point clear to everyone? Yes. That we say that we have credit risk. The moment you do the transaction, you have credit risk, but it need not always materialize. Okay, the broker could have, the grocer could be running a credit account for me, and then I buy for up to 5,000, and after it comes to 5,000, I settle the bill. If I settle the bill, then the credit risk has not materialized. Okay, is this point clear to everyone? Okay, but obviously he was running the credit. He did have the exposure of credit risk, okay, up to 5,000, but it did not materialize because, or did not crystallize, okay, because I paid up the money which I was supposed to pay. Is this point clear? These are 2 new terms that we are talking about, okay? Alright. So let's understand, so the point to understand the distinction that we are going to highlight and explain in this class is that in OTC markets, one of the distinctions between OTC and ETN, most important actually, is that in OTC markets, the counterparty credit risk is managed by the counterparties themselves. Okay, so if Bank of New Zealand Wellington does a deal for $10 million, okay, on dollar yen, okay, with Citibank New York, okay, and let's say that Bank of New Zealand is supposed to sell dollars under the deal, okay, so under the transaction they sell dollars, okay, so, and then they are buying yen, okay, so what will happen is on the day of the settlement, which is let's say 6 months from the date of the transaction, okay, 6 months later what will happen is, because the transaction was that Bank of New Zealand is buying dollars, and what did I say, selling dollars or buying dollars? Buying dollars. Let's write it down so that we don't get, we have $7 and buy yen. Everyone can see at the back. Ayush, can you see? Okay. Alright, and so you have here we'll just write as Citibank. Okay. So this is an OTC market transaction. So what we know in OTC markets, the term is, the feature of OTC markets is that the counterparty credit risk has to be managed by the counterparties themselves. No other third party is involved. Okay. So now you already know who the counterparties are in this transaction. There is Citi and Bank of New Zealand. Okay. So they are selling dollars and buying yen. So obviously these guys are buying dollars and selling yen. Okay. So now obviously what's happening is, because these guys are buying yen, let's assume that on the day of the settlement date, on the settlement date, what will happen, this is how a foreign exchange transaction works, or any other transaction has to work. Okay, then first they enter into the transaction. Okay, this is like the front office part of the firm will enter into the transaction. The dealers will enter into the transaction between themselves. Then they will write out a ticket. Okay, saying that sold $10 million against yen at so and so rate for settlement on 6 months later, and to City, New York. Okay, and then they will have to write out the instructions for City, New York, because if you are selling, look at his contractual obligations under this contract. He is selling dollars and buying yen. Okay, so he has to then give dollars to Citibank. This is clear? He's selling dollars and buying yen. So this is a contract, okay, to exchange assets. So he has contracted to sell the dollars and he is contracted to buy the yen. Okay, so what he has to tell Citibank is, because if he is buying yen, then Citibank has to give him the yen, right? So he has to tell Citibank which is the account into which the yen should be paid. Okay, it has to be a yen account, because if you have a rupee account, you can't receive yen in a rupee account. Okay, so obviously you have to give the account, so then he'll have to say that my yen will be given to my account so and so number with Bank of Tokyo, etc. Okay, and so here, so this is for the yen delivery, it's a settlement instruction. So in the ticket, they will have to write everything about the deal has to be written. How many, $10 million, what is the rate, okay, from which that you can work out the yen amount. Okay, if you have the dollar amount and you have the rate, you can work out the yen amount. Okay, so then you have to also give the instructions in the ticket that my yen will come to Bank of Tokyo, and they will also have to give the instructions. Citibank will also have to tell them where they will receive the dollars. This is clear, because the deal has to work, right? So fine, if you have contracted to sell dollars and buy yen, so you also, Bank of New Zealand has to know that where should I deliver your yen? Where should I deliver your dollars, right? So these guys have to, Citibank has to tell them a dollar, Citibank will say my dollars to City, New York. Okay, so those instructions will be there. So all that information is going to be put into a deal ticket, and that will go to the back office. Okay, back office is where, yeah.
Well, like in IFM is telling the
happened with the German bank, it's the same kind of thing. So how did okay, we discussed it while discussing settlement dates and settlement risk. Okay, yes.
Is this swap agreement that you are telling?
No, this is a spot foreign exchange. This is a forward foreign exchange deal, because I said the settlement date is 6 months later. So I took the example of a deal which is where the settlement is 6 months later. So this example is actually a forward foreign exchange transaction, that we agree to sell dollars and buy yen for settlement or for value. Remember the word value date. You have forgotten in your notes. Sometimes it is written. Settlement date is also referred to as value date. Okay, so for value 6 months forward. Okay, so this is actually a forward foreign exchange transaction.
Swap agreement.
There is no swap involved in this. There is, as such, in the transaction there is no swap. But FX swap points will be used, the ones which I showed you, they will be used to calculate the rate, but let's not get into that at this point, because we are studying a different transaction, a different kind of subject. Is this clear? A different topic. Is this clear to everybody? It's a forward foreign exchange transaction, okay? So the point is, everything, all the information has to be written into the deal ticket, it will be given to the back office, and then the back office will make arrangements, because these guys, their back office, their responsibility is to deliver the dollars, because they have agreed to sell the dollars. Okay, so their responsibility is to deliver the dollars to Citibank. They will see the instructions that my dollars to City, New York. Okay, so they will arrange to sell. They will make sure that 6 months later, $10 million should go and hit the account of City, New York. Right? Is this clear to everybody? Because you have to fulfill your contractual obligations. You have contracted to sell dollars. So your obligation is to deliver dollars 6 months down the line. So you will get the instructions from the other party, where do you want your dollars, and your back office will make sure that some telex is sent, okay, or Swift code, some software is used to make sure that on that particular date, $10 million credit should be given to the account of City, New York. Okay? Is everyone clear about this? Okay. So now what happens is, suppose that Bank of New Zealand has already given this, we already discussed this once with the Herstat risk example, we are recapping that. Now suppose Bank of New Zealand, because they are much ahead of City, New York, okay, so these guys are in Wellington, these guys are in Wellington and this is in New York, yes.
So but Herstat is because of the time, but it is not because of the time gap between.
No, Herstat was because of the time gap. Because the German bank, by the time the German bank had opened and declared bankruptcy, when they opened early in the morning and declared bankruptcy, the German regulators basically took over the bank. Essentially, it was like a bankruptcy. They would no longer honor their obligations. Okay, it would go through a bankruptcy process. So by the time those guys had done it, those people in the Far East had already sent their payments because they have to close early. So the back office guys will not stay beyond 5 p.m. So they would have sent the payments, they would have made arrangements and sent the payments. And then later on in Germany, the time bank opens and declares bankruptcy. By the time you already sent your money. Okay? So the same thing here, Bank of New Zealand is in Wellington, they will close early. So obviously by the time they've closed, they've already made arrangements and sent the dollars, ensured that the dollars will go, the $10 million will go to Citibank New York. They will go and credit the account of Citibank New York. But Citi New York, let's say for some reason, they actually were going to go bankrupt, that's why they had to be taken over by the US government. Okay? So Citi New York, let's say defaults, alright? Or for whatever reason they don't pay. So then Citibank New York, that buy yen part doesn't happen. So these guys have delivered the dollars, but the other counterparty does not deliver the yen. Okay? Is this clear? Now this is again an example of counterparty credit risk. So the point here is that these guys have no recourse. I mean, they can take legal, they can file a legal claim, of course. They have that option, but that's a very messy affair. But the point is, these guys are stranded with this. They can't go to anybody for any help as such. It is they have to eat the loss. Okay? Because the deal in OTC markets is all transactions are between two parties, and all counterparty credit risk is managed by the two parties. Okay? So basically, that's why what happens is, if you understand a little bit about how foreign exchange markets work, and all other markets will also be there, be functioning in this way. Each counterparty will have certain limits for each of the other counterparties. The Bank of New Zealand Wellington doesn't want to have on a particular day, okay, on any particular day, they don't want to have more than, let's say, $1 million of transactions settling with Citibank. Because on that day, if they default, they will lose 1 billion, right? So if they cap it, just like your grocer tells you that, you know, if your bill goes to 5,000, please pay up. Please don't have to pay for every transaction, but the moment you have a 5,000 rupee bill, please pay up. Please clear the bill. Is this clear? It's the same reason. So normally most banks will have some kind of settlement caps when they are transacting in the OTC market. They will keep an eye on the settlement limit. That if you have done some previous deals, which are also settling on the same day, so you make sure that on a cumulative basis, you don't have some amount more than say 500 million or 1 billion should not be settling on one particular day with one particular bank. This is clear to everybody, how people manage the risk. So the point is, in OTC markets, credit risk has to be managed by each counterparty with the other counterparty. So if you're dealing with a shady bank, then you will make sure that you don't have very large limits. You don't do large transactions with some bank which is kind of shady, okay? Which is not going to be where maybe you're not sure whether the bank will survive or not, okay? Like right now, there's a lot of clouds over Deutsche Bank. So this is one of the problems that people face when they have questions about their credit quality. Like PNB, obviously, you know, because of the situation in PNB, of course, it's a public sector bank, so the government will bail them out, okay? But generally, when you have in a pre-market situation, if you have a situation like what you had in PNB, what you will find is in the OTC markets, most of the other banks don't want to deal with PNB anymore because they are not sure if this bank is going to survive. So they don't want to have any transactions maturing with this bank because they will do their side of the deal, they will pay the money, but PNB may not be able to pay them back. So that's why whenever there is any cloud over any institution, the other institutions start pulling back. They don't want to deal with this institution. The same thing happened to Lehman Brothers when they went bankrupt. The moment the rumors started swirling in the market, everybody started pulling their lines. So they couldn't deal with anyone because everybody knows that this company is suspect. So everybody says, I'm sorry, I don't want to deal with you. Okay, I don't have limits. So this is the problem that happens. This is how people manage their credit risk. Okay, it's always between the two parties. You can't go anywhere. Now, if you go back to so this OTC market business is clear to everybody. What is we learned a few things, right? We learned about counterparty credit risk. Okay, and then we learned about how counterparty credit risk is managed in OTC markets. Is this point? Are these things clear to everybody? Okay, let's.
Sir?
Yes.
So in case of global spot market for FX, there is no regulation. You don't have any intermediary to regulate the part.
No. The direct transactions are not regulated. There is indirect regulation in the sense, like, let's say, for instance, SBI Bombay is dealing with, let's say Deutsche Bank in London. Okay, so each of the banks is regulated by the local regulator. Okay, so whatever prudential standards the local regulator, like RBI will be watching over SBI Bombay. So RBI will have some rules that if you're doing foreign exchange transactions, you have to follow these kind of rules, etc. And there in London, the Bank of England will have some sway over Deutsche Bank London. Okay, they will have some kind of inspection, some from time to time, to see if there is any fraudulent transaction. But by and large, in the direct transaction between these two banks, there is no regulatory interference. That's why the banks have to manage all the OTC market counterparties have to proactively manage the risks themselves. Okay?
So if we talk about the Indian exchange traded equity markets, so who are the intermediaries who are?
But then we are coming to that. That becomes ETM. The example I gave you of SBI Bombay dealing with Deutsche Bank London is the OTCM. Now we are coming, what you are asking about now is ETM, then we are coming to that. Okay? So now we come back to, if you notice what was there in the spreadsheet, the column, the two columns. Okay? So the point of distinction is that in the OTC markets, the counterparty credit risk is managed by the counterparties themselves. Okay? And so the other point, the distinction obviously is that in the ETM, okay, what will happen is that the counterparty credit risk is managed by the ECH, which is the exchange clearing house. Okay? Is this clear, the distinction? So first understand the distinction as we stated, and then we'll understand exactly how it works. So the distinction is obviously in OTC markets, it is managed directly by the counterparties themselves. Okay? Every man for himself. Okay? We're dealing with somebody, please make sure you check their credit risk and deal with them and manage that on your own. You don't have a fallback. In ETM, every transaction is going through the ECH. So every transaction is guaranteed by the ECH. So if you have here, clearing member 1, let's say, is Sher Khan, and clearing member 2 is, let's say, HDFC. Okay? I'm not going to say HDFC Security, the big name. So HDFC and Sher Khan have done a transaction. But the Sher Khan's transaction is also with the ECH. And so if they have sold to each other, let's say, okay, that's how the deal has gone. So Sher Khan has sold, okay, and HDFC has bought. But Sher Khan's transaction is that they are selling to the ECH. And HDFC's transaction is that they are buying from the ECH. That's the transaction. These are the two contracts, okay? Now what happens is, if Sher Khan defaults, let's say, if Sher Khan defaults, okay, and they have sold, that means they take the money, but they don't deliver the shares, okay, then HDFC is not stranded because they are not really concerned with who is on the other side. They are not concerned with this clearing member 1. HDFC will have a claim on the ECH because their transaction is the ECH. Is this clear? So the ETM, that's why we said that the point of distinction, what is written on the left-hand column, is that in ETM, the counterparty credit risk is intermediated or managed by the exchange clearing house. Okay, so this is basically what is called credit risk intermediation. So the term, I may have used it on that particular, I don't remember. But the term that we use is, you understand what is meant by intermediation? That is, you stand between two parties, right? Yeah, like ECH. So the expression that we use is, we say that the exchange clearing house functions or performs the function of credit risk intermediation. Alright? So each party will have a recourse to the exchange clearing house because their transaction with the exchange clearing house, they are not really concerned with whether the other party has defaulted or not. Okay? Is this clear to everybody? Okay. So one more thing to understand is how this actually works, and then you get a very good understanding of futures contracts. Okay? Because that's the more popular of the ETM contracts. Okay? Spot equities are also exchange traded, but because they tend to be settled very quickly, you don't get a good understanding of credit risk. But futures can run for a very long period of time, actually at least about 3 months per contract. So you get a better understanding of credit risk management. So is this point clear? Okay, now we'll explain how it works. Okay, so now the problem is, if the exchange clearing house, okay, is going to be responsible to do that. Okay. If you can actually, you maybe can set the sleep. You know how to set the sleep thing from the. I think it's from the power options. Just go to hit Windows M and then go to the desktop and set the power options. No, don't minimize it.
Okay.
Don't minimize it. Just go Windows M. Just hit Windows M. Yeah. Now just right click and go to power. I think how do you go to power options? Right click the screen.
Oh no.
Or whatever power options.
Sleep. You said sleep.
Okay. Even I forgot the power options. Okay. I didn't want to do this actually because I didn't want to waste time. Who knows how to do this? Set the sleep. You know how to do it? Just set the sleep.
Meet the battery option here.
Yeah.
Click on this. Then go to adjust more power options.
Adjust screen, more power options.
Here it is somewhere.
Change when the computer sleeps, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this. Okay, that's it. Okay, good. Alright, yeah, so we're done with that headache. Okay, so now understand the problem that the exchange clearing house has, okay? Because the exchange clearing house is going to be liable to every counterparty, okay? So if Sher Khan defaults on this site, okay, they still have to pay HDFC Bank or HDFC Securities, okay? So therefore that means now the problem is what used to be the problem of each counterparty in OTC market, that problem has now landed on the lap of the ECH because they have to manage the credit risk somehow, that make sure that even if Sher Khan defaults, they should be able to pay HDFC, right? You getting the problem? So how do they manage that? Okay, so let's assume that there is a so now we'll be talking about ETF. So if you have so let's say that Sher Khan has sold shares. We'll just take an example of oil. Say we'll say Indian bank and buy. This is the settlement will be, let's say it's 31st December. Okay. Alright guys, let's try to understand this transaction. So then we'll see how the exchange clearing house manages risk. Okay, this is the example we're taking is a futures contract, but for every other contract we're taking a commodity futures contract. For every contract it's going to work like this. In spot equities, the risk is much less because you have to settle within T+2. Okay, so it's a very short date, and if you don't settle, then they'll auction it and do it in that manner. But to understand how the exchange clearing house manages risk, it's better to take a futures contract. Okay, so this Sher Khan has sold crude oil contract for Z means December. Okay, December 2018. Let's assume that it is actually going to mature on 31st December. Okay, just for the sake of argument. In practice, it will be not there. It will be somewhere in November. But let's take this as an example. Okay. All right. So now the price is $70. Okay. So let's say they were transacted in the morning. Okay, and the early morning, the first trade they have done, and they have these guys have sold crude oil at $70. Okay. Now let's say that on that day itself. Okay, and let's say this happens on this day, which is today is 24/9, right? Okay. So let's say that on 25/9 or 24/9 itself, okay, the closing price of crude oil, let's say, is actually $65. Okay. So let's look at it from Sher Khan's point of view. So this Sher Khan's early in the morning they bought crude oil at $70. Okay. On that day. Sold. Okay, they have sold crude oil at $70 early in the morning. That very same day, 24/9, the settlement price, that is the last closing price for that day, is $65. So is Sher Khan making money or losing money? So they're losing money. So they're losing $5. Let's assume it's one contract. So they're losing $5 per contract, per barrel. Okay. So they're losing $5,000 because this contract is 1,000 barrels. The crude oil contract is 1,000 barrels. They're losing $5 per barrel. So they have lost $5,000. Okay. So now let's say, one sec guys, what is happening? Why is there so much talking in the back? Now again I have to start deducting marks and wasting time doing that. Yes? Oh sorry. Yeah, because I was saying bought and then I was reading, so yeah. So if they have sold at $70, they have a profit. This is clear. They have sold at $70 and then the price has dropped to 65. Yeah, obviously there are mistakes like the please point out, but I'm also not clear whether I said bought or sold or profit or loss. Yes. So is this clear now? It's a loss, it's a profit, sorry. Because you have sold at 70, now the closing price is 65. So at the current mark-to-market profit for Sher Khan is $5,000. Is everyone clear about that? Are you clear now? Okay, so mark-to-market profit is $5,000. Everyone is clear about mark-to-market and what the profit calculation is. Okay, so if these guys are making money, then what is happening to Indian Bank? They are losing money because these guys bought at $70. Okay, and now they are losing $5,000 at 65. Is everyone clear? For Indian Bank, the mark-to-market is loss of $5,000, and for Sher Khan, the profit is the profit is $5,000. The mark-to-market profit. Yes. No, these are futures contract, but it's trading continuously. So this is the price early in the morning when they traded, and then the closing price for the day is $65. So these guys have a loss of 5,000. And Indian Bank has a loss of, these guys have a profit of 5,000, Indian Bank has a loss of 5,000. Everyone's clear? Okay. Now let's assume that the next morning Indian Bank defaults. Okay. When the market opens on 25/9, then Indian Bank defaults. Okay. They refuse to pay up. They say, I don't like this transaction, I'm not going to honor it. Okay. So in that case, what happens? These guys are sitting on a profit of 5,000. So they will ask the ECH. They are going to demand the 5,000 profit from the ECH. Is that clear, everyone? Okay. But then ECH has no money to pay because Indian Bank has already defaulted, right? So essentially the way it works is that every day, one of the elements of the setup is that there is a daily settlement of profits and losses in exchange traded contracts, especially in futures contracts, okay? The most common type of exchange traded contract. There is a daily settlement of profits and losses. So what will happen is, every day, the moment the closing of 24th September shows that the price is 65, then the ECH will realize that Sher Khan is sitting on a profit of 5,000 and that IB is losing 5,000. So it will make the losing, so it will send out a notice to the losing party and it will ask them by next morning you should deposit $5,000. Whatever you have lost today, you should deposit that. Okay? And it is with that money, and then they will also they will allow next morning when that 5,000 comes in from Indian Bank, they will allow Sher Khan to withdraw that 5,000. Okay, so they can go shopping with that $5,000. It is their money. Is this clear to everyone? So the first thing you have in a futures contract, so you understand also the settlement of futures contracts. There's actually a daily mark-to-market is done, and there is a daily settlement of profits and losses. Okay, so if the next day's price, let's say, is $68. So now first, obviously, let's make sure what happens about 24th September. The exchange realizes that Sher Khan is losing 5,000. Sher Khan is making 5,000. IB is losing 5,000. They will ask IB to pay 5,000 by 25th morning. Okay? By 25th morning, IB has to pay 5,000. Okay? Otherwise, their position will be closed out. Okay? So they will pay 5,000 and then 5,000 will be paid to Sher Khan. They can take it out. So every day, whatever money you lose or win, the next day you have to pay that money or you can receive that money. You will receive that money and that is there for you. You can take that money out of your account also. Okay? But again, is this point clear for first day's transaction? Okay? Then let's say 25 September, the closing price is 68. Okay, so now how much, now what is happening? What is happening to Sher Khan? Have they lost money or they made money? Some are saying lost, some are saying made. Lost. Okay, why is it lost? Why do you say lost?
Because of their banks are very daily.
Don't speak in Hindi. Okay, yes.
They taken 5,000.
They have taken 5,000, right? So anybody disagrees? You understand the logic that Sahil is using? That they are actually, Sher Khan is actually has to now pay up. Because now the marking, the beauty of daily mark to market is that the original price at which you went long or short now is no longer relevant. As soon as you cross one day, that original price is no longer relevant. So now we was up to 65 has already been settled, right? Profit and loss has already been settled up to 65. So now from whatever the next price, settlement price, when we do the calculation of who's losing money or making money, it will be done from with a reference to 65, not to 70. This is clear. So it's as if that at the end of 24/9, Sher Khan is short at 65 and IB is long at 65. That is the concept that has to be applied here. This is clear? Another step is the logic. Make sure that everybody follows this. Yes, Bhatia, you're following? Okay. So on 25th, the closing of 25th, when the ECH is calculating the mark-to-market P&L for both the parties, the ECH will say that Sher Khan is making or losing? Losing. Sher Khan is losing $3 per barrel, $3,000. Okay? And IB is making $3,000. Okay? So then again the notice will go out, and again I'm assuming here there is no Saturday, Sunday involved. But so maybe we just want to count the days. So on 26/9 morning, now Sher Khan has to pay $3,000 to the exchange, to the ECH, okay? And then IB can take out $3,000, okay? On this morning, they will credit the account of IB to the extent of $3,000, okay? Because they were long at 65, now the price is 68, okay? So the next morning they will get $3,000 in their account IB, and SK will have to pay $3,000. It's clear to everyone? Okay, so this is how the system works. And it will go on like this every day. Okay? Yes?
So if I default on the same day on which the trade ends, maybe
Yeah, let's say for instance this day when you're supposed to pay 5,000, you don't pay. Yeah, so now we're coming to that. I'm just coming to that. Make sure first we'll do it step by step. So this first thing is clear. What is, because you will notice in the spreadsheet, if you see that other spreadsheet, it says daily settlement of profits and losses. Daily M2M and settlement of profits and losses, okay? Something like that, to that effect is written in the spreadsheet, okay? The two columns. So this is what is meant by, in ETM, especially in the case of futures contracts, okay? That you have to have this kind of daily settlement. So every day the exchange, the ECH will calculate the closing price, the settlement price, and they will see the price at which you are long, okay? Either from the previous day or at the start of the contract, which is in the case of 70, and then they will calculate your profit or loss. If you have a profit, next day you can take out the profit. If you have a loss, you have to pay the loss. Okay? This is point clear to everybody, the system, how it works. Now, Bell's question is that what if they default on the first day itself? When 25th morning they're supposed to pay, then IB is supposed to pay $5,000, they don't pay the $5,000. Okay? So here there is a system called the margining system. Okay? So there are some margining systems, okay? I'll give you a note on this later on. I mean, you can refer to the textbook also, it's very standard material, okay? There are two types of margins, okay? There is an initial margin and then there is a maintenance margin, okay? The main thing is that Bell's question, has everyone understood what Bell's question is? That what if they default on the first day itself? That at the end of the closing of 24/9, there is a loss of 5,000 for IB, so the next morning they walk away, okay? So here comes the idea of initial margin, okay? So the exchanges work on a margin basis, okay? So what happens is you can't even do a transaction unless you put up the initial margin. So there will be an initial margin, which is typically in the case of futures contracts, the international futures contracts, around 5 to 6% roughly, okay, of the value of the contract, okay? So whatever the value, so here is 70, $70,000 because the contract is for $1,000. Okay, the contract is for not $1,000, 1,000 barrels. Okay, 1,000 barrels and the price is $70 per barrel. Okay, so in this case it is 70,000. The value of the contract. When you contract to buy, one contract on NYMEX crude oil at $70 per barrel, that means actually the value of the transaction that you have done is $70,000. Okay, if you want to look at the value of the transaction. So then typically the margin will be somewhere ballpark. You can actually vary a little bit, but let's say 5%. Okay, so what will happen is $70,000 into 5%. Okay, so 5% of $70,000. That amount of dollars you will have to deposit as initial margin. Okay, this is a deposit of initial margin. Okay, so the point is that you cannot even do a trade, you can't trade in a futures contract on an exchange unless you have first put in the initial margin, and the initial margin goes through this entire chain. You will deposit the initial margin with the IB. The IB will deposit with the CM, okay, and the CM will deposit with the ECH. And all the CMs have to have fairly well-funded accounts at the ECH. That's why they deal with the CMs, okay. Even before they do a transaction, in order to be a clearing member, you will have to maintain some minimum balance with the ECH. You'll have to maintain an account with some minimum balance. It's a fairly high number, okay. So the ECH makes sure that we are safe in dealing with these clearing members. Okay, is everyone clear about this, the scheme? So even clearing members have to have some. So when you deposit your initial margin to do a foreign exchange transaction, do any futures contract, to transact in any futures contract, it goes through the entire route. You give it to your introducing broker, he will credit the account of the clearing member, and the clearing member will deposit that transaction, that initial margin, to the clearing house. Okay, so the clearing house will see at the end of every day. They will see how many transactions were done, and they will see whether initial margin for all those transactions has been submitted or not. If you haven't submitted, then the transaction is not recognized. Okay, you have to submit the initial margin. Yes?
So you decide initial margin by clearing member or?
No, this is decided by the ECH. This is decided by the, yes? That's your question, who decides?
Clearing member.
Yes. Hey guys, don't talk. I can't hear. Voice is quite soft. Yes.
Give different options to their customers to trade in futures contract. For example, I just put $100 in my account. So one clearing member give me option to trade in 500 rupees.
Yeah.
Another give me to trade in 1,000 rupees.
Yeah. So those are basically off a minimum. You see, in the sense that actually the initial margin numbers are decided by the exchange, by the ECH. Okay? They take into account, this is a slightly different context. Yeah, but the point is basically that the exchange, who decides? The function's question is who decides the initial margin. Like I gave you an example, typically initial margin is around 5-6%. Okay, let's say 5%. So the function's question is who decides that 5%? It is decided by the ECH. They have the final say. Okay. Now what might happen, what you're talking about, what he's talking about is, he finds that some brokers are demanding higher margin, some clients are demanding lower margin. Okay. So this ECH, whatever the margin is set, initial margin is set by the ECH, that's a minimum. Now I may be a more risk averse broker, I may demand more for my clients. Okay. So I may actually demand that my clients have to submit 8%. Okay, and then I will enjoy the interest on the balance 3%. So some brokers may charge more, but nobody can go below the 5% minimum. Even if they give the client some kind of privileged client with some special privilege, but they still have to, the CM has to still deposit 5% with the ECH. Now if you want to take a loss and give some special privilege to some special client and let him deal on 3% margins, that's your problem. But you have to deposit 5% to the ECH. You can't go below that. If you want to eat the loss on 2% and give a privilege to some special client, some firms do that. Okay, that's just a business decision. It's like what you heard the expression loss leader. Have you heard the expression loss leader in marketing? Okay, so loss leader is something where you sell a product where you're just trying to, like this Pointer demo software. That's like a loss leader, because they're giving it free to people so that more people become interested in foreign exchange trading, and then they start opening real accounts. So loss leader means you sell a product at some loss, but you hope that later on people will buy some other product, okay, which is more highly priced, you have a higher margin. That's the concept of loss leader, okay. So if you want to do that, that's different. But the ECH, the short answer is, those margins, the initial margins are set by the ECH, and nobody can go below those, okay. Every CM has to deposit whatever the initial margin is set by the exchange for each contract. For each contract it will be different, okay. We are coming to why that is. Each contract, the ECH is different, okay. Sorry, not ECH is different. The initial margin is different, okay. Initial margin is different for each contract. The numbers are set by the exchange, okay. And so every CM has to submit that initial margin if it wants any contract to be recognized by the ECH. Is this clear? Okay. All right. So that, now briefly speaking, if you see, in general, so this amount of the initial margin. Now you can ask a second question. You can ask another question, and that is, the first question the bank asked was, who sets the IM? Now you can also set the second question, which is, how does the ECH come up with the value of the IM? How do they do it? Okay. So essentially, the short answer is, they look at the volatility of the contract. Okay. So here you can see we gave an example where the crude oil contract has moved by $5 in one day. Okay. So the ECH knows that ECH's risk is only for about 1 day, right? Because in the next morning, if you don't pay up your loss, we will close out your contract. Okay. So maximum 1 to 1.5 days, the ECH is exposed. Are you clear? Okay. Is everyone following this? They're only exposed for 1 to 1.5 days. Okay. So if they feel that, let's say 99% of the time, the crude oil contract does not move by more than $10 in 1.5 days. Okay. So they will ensure that they put up enough initial margin to cover for a $10 loss. Are you following the logic? Okay. So the exchange sees that how much can the crude oil contract move at a particular point of time. Okay. You can see this is actually a crude oil chart, but it's a very long-term chart. These are the monthly closing charts, okay, for crude oil, but you can see it's very volatile. So, but essentially the calculation that the exchange will do is, the ECH will think about, okay, my exposure is only for about 1 to 1.5 days, because if they don't pay up by 1.5 days, I'm going to close out their contract in the market, okay. So you remember that case we did in lab? What is the name of the case where there was a share transaction and Jamal, right? A case Jamal versus Mullah Dawood, right? That's a case where share sale transaction and the delivery was made, but the buyer did not pay the money. The seller had delivered the shares, but the buyer did not pay the money. And if you remember, what was the logic? Let's see if you remember the principle. In all these kinds of contracts, okay, damages, measure of damages. This is a case of breach of contract. So what is the measure of damages for breach of contract? On which day? Correct. So the measure of damages is, so remember the connection, try to make the connection also. So the correct answer for the question of what is the measure of damages in that kind of transaction, okay, in all kind of sale of goods cases, okay, where shares includes goods, okay. Now, the measure of damages is, Achal has correctly pointed out, is the difference between the contract price and the market price on the date of the breach. Okay? So if you remember here let's say that they enter into the contract at $70, okay? And then the previous night's closing price, that day itself the closing price is $65. So Indian Bank is losing $5,000, okay, let's say $5 per contract. And next morning, let's say by the time that Indian Bank says to the ECH that I'm not paying up, forget it, okay? Then they learn about the breach, okay? And let's assume that the price has not moved from 65, okay? When the ECH comes to know that IB is not going to honor the contract, the price is still at 65, okay? So if you see what has happened, that SK has sold at 70, right? Which means, because every transaction goes through the ECH, right? So that means the ECH is, what is the position of the ECH? If SK has sold at 70, what is the position of the ECH, long or short? ECH is long. Is everyone clear about this? Some are not clear, I think. Parmeet, are you following? That if SK has sold at 70, then what is the position of the ECH? Long, right? Because they are on the other side of the transaction. So now they thought that they had a transaction with IB, but now IB has defaulted. Okay? Because actually ECH initially did not have any net exposure because they had bought from SK, where SK was selling. So as far as SK is concerned, ECH is long, right? But then they also sold to IB because IB has bought, right? So that means this transaction actually consists of two transactions where SK is selling to ECH. It has two transactions, right? SK is selling and ECH is buying. Is one transaction, right? Then the second transaction is that ECH is selling and IB is buying, right? So ECH transaction has exposure has netted out. Can you see that? They have bought from SK and they have sold to IB. So ECH does not have any net position. Is that clear to everyone? Right? ECH does not have net position. But on the morning of 25th, they find that because they had given the notice to IB to pay $5,000 and IB is saying forget it. Okay? So on the morning of 25th, now ECH suddenly has a position. Can you see that? Because they had a long position because of the transaction with SK, but they had a short position because of the transaction with IB. So they actually had no net position. But because now IB has defaulted, so the second leg of the transaction has fallen through. The second transaction has fallen through. So now you're left with only one transaction, which is that ECH is long. Because the transaction with IB is over, they have defaulted on the contract, right? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
So ECH is left with only one transaction, which is that they are long crude oil at 70. Okay? And remember that then we are taking a scenario where we are saying that on the next morning, when they find out that IB has defaulted, they find that the market price is still unchanged from last night, which is still 65. Is this clear? So now if you're stuck with a position which you suddenly feel, you thought you had no position, but suddenly you find that you have a position, okay? So you're long, your position is net long and you're long at 70, okay? And the market price is 65, okay? So remember what was said by the court in the Mullah Dawood case? That if they held on to the shares, what happened in the Mullah Dawood case? They held on to the shares. The party who was the non-breaching party, that is the seller. The seller thought that he had already disposed of the shares, but on the morning of the default he finds, okay, I still have this position. So what they decided was they held on to the position and then luckily the price went up. And then they sold at a lower loss at least. Remember that? The facts of the case? So what did the court say in that particular case? They said that this transaction has to be, this act of their holding on to the shares has to be seen as split into two. First, we assume that as soon as they learn about the breach, they have sold it at the current market and then they have bought it back at the current market. You remember that? That the fact that, well, I think people are getting lost now. So if you're getting lost, you have to tell me that you're not following.
No, sir, we are following.
You're following, okay. Or maybe you are following but others are not following. So you remember that in that particular case, the seller found that he was faced with a default, which means he thought the shares which he had sold off, actually he has not sold off, he still has the shares. And he held on to the shares. But the court said this is as if he has actually realized that there is a default. Immediately he has sold the long position at the market and he has bought it back at the market and then held on to it. Are you following the split? You're following the transaction? So conceptually the court will see it as two transactions. So that's why the court does not take into account any profit and loss on the second part of the transaction. That when you buy it back at market, that's a new transaction. You have done that, nobody asked you to do that. You had no obligation to do that. But you did it, that's a separate transaction. So whatever profit and loss happens on that transaction, nothing will be given or taken from the defaulter. Remember that?
Yes.
So that's why what she's saying that measure of damages is difference between the contract price and the market price on the date of the breach. Is this clear? Because what the court expects is that the moment you realize that there is a default, you are supposed to offload your position in the market. Okay? So that's what the exchange will do. The moment they realize that IB is defaulting, they find the market price is still 65, so immediately they dump their position in the market. So they will take a loss of $5 per barrel. This is clear to everyone? Okay? This is what is meant by the same, it's the same principle. If your NSE, if you look at it, when you have non-delivery, there will be an auction. Okay? There will be an auction and they will buy the shares that you are supposed to deliver. And whatever the cost of the shares is for buying at the market, they will charge it to your account. Is this clear? What happened? But no response. Yes.
So in this case, Sher Khan will also be left with the position at the end because IBS not already.
No, because see, Sher Khan's position is taken. Sher Khan has no concern as such, because as far as they're concerned, they have sold they've sold one contract at $70 to the ECH. So they will say to the ECH that I am not concerned with whether IB has defaulted or not. I have sold you at $70, you have to buy from me at $70. So SK is clear, he has nothing to worry about. It's only the ECH has to worry about both the parties, because either of the parties could default, and then the ECH will be stranded. If nobody defaults, then the ECH has no net position on any contract. Is this clear to everybody? That there is no net position for the ECH if nobody defaults. Only if somebody defaults, then the ECH is left with a position. Right? Is this clear? Okay, so that's why now we are coming back to that old question. The entire discussion is because why we went back to the case. Okay? That the whole idea is to try and figure out how. Like we said that the initial margin is set by the exchange. Okay? But how do they set it? What is the thinking that goes behind the determination of the quantum of the initial margin? Okay? So what the exchange will see is, it will see what its risk is. The exchange will see what its risk is. What is the risk of the exchange? You can see it's about a 1 to 1.5 day price movement. Okay? On any given day, if you don't pay up by early morning the next day, they will close out your position. Okay, so let's say even till lunchtime they will close out your position. So about 1.5 day. So they will see how much. Here you can see that the loss suffered by the exchange is $5 per barrel. This is clear? Here the exchange ECH has suffered a loss of $5 per barrel. Is everyone clear about that? Okay? That's because the price moved by $5 per barrel. So they will see, what they typically do is, they will look at the historical prices, like they will look at some kind of chart like this and they will look at the numbers. They will see historically how much does the crude oil price move by in 1 day or in 1.5 days historically. Okay? So they will come up with some number. They will see historically that whatever the number is. Then they'll assume basically they'll take some kind of buffer around that, keep some kind of margin cushion for themselves, and that's what they'll try to do. So basically when setting the initial margin, what the ECH is trying to do is trying to make sure that even if it has to auction off, basically buy off square the position in the market, it should not be out of pocket. Okay? So this initial margin here, they have suffered a $5 loss. This initial margin should have been at least $5 per contract. Okay? So therefore, this is basically, that's how they set the initial margin. Are you getting the idea? Okay, so you're getting the whole scheme of how exchange traded futures contracts work. Okay? That first you have to put up an initial margin. Without initial margin, exchange will not honor your contract, will not recognize your contract. If, yeah.
They will find a new buyer.
Who will find a new buyer? Yeah, ECH will just go into the market and trade with anybody. They will trade because there are other players in the market, right? So they will just find a new buyer and square it off. Close out the contract, okay? Again, they'll have another contract with that new buyer, okay? So again, the same procedures will apply. This is clear? Okay, so now you've understood this concept. Okay, so we have learned a few things so far. That we were talking about this point number 4. It deals with the concept of counterparty credit risk. Yeah.
So like each margin, if it is $10, then it will get $5 back to IB.
If the initial margin is, yeah. So whatever is left over, it will return to the counterparty. Okay, whatever is left over, it will return to the counterparty. But yes. No, interest actually here, you mean interest, no, there is no interest as such. You don't get interest on that unless you have given it in terms of interest bearing securities. The initial margin, some exchanges in the US allow you to submit in the form of T-bills and all that. So if you have given say $1 million worth of T-bills as initial margin, okay? So the rest and let's say the loss is $500,000. So the balance $500,000 they will return to you, and whatever interest you earned on that you will get anyway because it's in the form of interest bearing. But otherwise, a cash balance they don't pay interest. They will not pay interest on this cash balance. Okay? Yes. Any other questions? So what we have covered so far? Counterparty credit risk, concept of counterparty credit risk, OTC markets, every man for himself. Okay? You manage it on your own. Okay, then in ETM, counterparty credit risk management has several parts to it. One part is that, we discuss this later on, but the first part is you can think of is that without depositing the initial margin, no ECH is going to recognize your contract. Okay, so first, every contract is with the ECH. The ECH is a counterparty to every contract. Okay, that's the first point. Second point is that without depositing IM, no exchange, ECH is not going to recognize your contract. The ECH will determine the IM, they will tell you what the IM is for each contract. You have to deposit that IM with the clearing member, okay, and the clearing member has to deposit to the ECH. Without that, there is no contract, okay. And then once the contract is on, every day that the contract is open, there will be daily mark to market, and by next morning you have to settle the difference. If you have money, if you are a winner, you can take out your money. If you are a loser, you have to pay the money. Okay? So it is the losers, the ECH takes the losers' money and pays the winners. Is this clear? That's why you can take it out. Yes. You have another question? Yeah.
Sir, what happens to the initial margin? Sir, if the party does not pay, but the other day it is losing money at market.
Yeah.
So will the ECH take from the party, the market will just deduct from the...
It will deduct from the initial margin.
So sir, every day the initial margin is reset.
No. See, suppose you have put in $5,000 as initial margin. Okay. But the 5,000 you have to put more because let's say it's 10K. Okay. So first day you have loss of 5,000. Okay. Then this margin deposit will now, they will take out 5,000 from this and the margin will be taken as 5K. So your margin balance will be now taken as 5K. Clear?
So if it loses one...
Next day also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what he is hinting at is the next point that we have to discuss. Okay. That is the concept of maintenance margin. Okay, there are two important types of margin. Okay, there's another third point called variation margin, so we'll discuss that also. But he's coming to the next point of maintenance margin. So there is an initial margin without which you cannot do a transaction. Okay, now there is also a concept of maintenance margin, which is there is a threshold. Okay, let's say the threshold is 3K. Okay, so there will be a threshold that is set by the exchange. Okay. Also, again, the ECH will determine something called a maintenance margin. If your balance, initial margin, everybody has understood? Okay, and Sal's question is that how does it get exchanged? So if your first day loss is 5,000 and in your IM was 10,000, so now your balance will be taken as 5,000. Your margin balance is 5,000, they have eaten up the 5,000 from your 10K balance. Okay, now the next day also you lose money. There is another number that the exchange tells you, and that is the maintenance margin. Okay? The maintenance margin means it's a minimum level. Okay? If the margin falls below the maintenance margin, okay, you will get a call from the exchange. You have to again top up back to 10K. You have to go back to the 10K level. Okay? So there is a threshold that they will set, 2K, 3K, whatever it is. Okay? If the moment your margin falls below that, you will get another call. It's called a margin call, yes?
Sir, if the balance goes down, then we cannot trade until we top up.
Yeah, you have to top it up back to the initial margin level. Okay, that's called a variation call or margin call. Okay. So is this clear to everybody? So a few other things that we have learned about margins. That there is something called an initial margin without which your trade is not going to be recognized. Okay. Then every day's losses, daily mark-to-market losses, will be deducted from your initial margin. Okay, and then there is also something else to worry about, that is the maintenance margin. Okay, and then the moment it hits the threshold of maintenance, if it drops below the maintenance margin, you have to again top up. Okay, so that call is called a margin call. When they ask you to top up, that's called a margin call. Okay, and then the amount of margin that you submit there is variation. Why are people getting restless? The time up? Are you sure the time is up? Okay, 2 minutes left. Sorry? 6 minutes. Okay, then we have a lot of time. Okay. I owe you. 1 minute. So 1 minute, let me explain one more term, which is variation margin. So this money that you have to use to top up, okay, that is the variation margin. Okay, then once you hit the MM, first you put up the IM. Okay, first you put up the IM, then the ECH will calculate your daily PNL, daily mark to market loss. If you are losing money every day, they will deduct the losses from the IM, and slowly the IM level is falling. The moment it drops below MM, they will ask you to top up. Okay, so that topping up amount, that's called the variation margin. Okay, and the call that they give you, to top up, that's called a margin call. Okay, yes. Yes, in this case 7K is because 3K, we have said that 3K is the MM. So 1 minute, last point. So 3K is the MM. So in this case 7K is the variation margin you have to pay. Is this clear? Yes. Sorry? Yeah. No, it doesn't change that frequently. Initial margin they will change maybe once in a year or once in a quarter or maybe once in 6 months or something. It doesn't change that frequently. No, they can take out. Daily winnings and losses you have to pay and take out. You can't take out. You can keep it there also, but you can take out if you want. Daily winnings you can take out. Yes. What happened? Time is up. No, time is up. No, I'm now going to deduct 2 marks for AA and